All right, this is part 2 of 2 videos on how to create the lock screen app for Advanced Placement Computer Science Principles, Unit 6, Lesson 8 of 2024. Of course, this lesson may move around in code.org. It might be altered or something, but this is part 2 of the video. If you are interested in only seeing how the app looks when it's done, all the coding, then just skip to the end, because I'm going to go through this as slowly as possible for people that really don't know how to code at all. So I'm going to go step by step and try to explain my thinking process on how to solve this. And it's going to be in real time, and if you prefer to speed up the video, go ahead and do that. You can skip around. I'm just going to try to solve this. I'm sure I'm going to make mistakes along the way, because that's how coding works. You try things out, you make mistakes, you test it, you try again and try again. And so here we go. And since it's been almost 3 days since I looked at this last, I'm going to kind of review what's here and then try to continue from wherever I left off. Remember, if you have not watched the first video, what we have here is we have an app, and this app, if I just switch back to the original screen here, the first screen, we have an app. We have 20 little icons here. If we go to design view, we'd be able to see these. We'd have to do that in the other view, but there's 20 little icons. When we press run, it changes each of these into a shape that's selected at random from, I think, 7 or 8 different possibilities for the icon. It randomly moves them around the screen, it randomly colors them, it randomly changes their sizes, and it randomly changes the background color also, although you can't really see that in some of the runs. There's also 3 event buttons. There's one that only changes the colors, so that's right there. There's one that only changes the locations, and there's one that only changes the shapes. So we have several things we need to do, and a lot of that coding is already done, as was in the first video, and you should be able to find that linked in the description or in the thumbnail at the end of this video here. So let's skip back and see what coding we've got so far. There are some instructions at the top. There is a paper that, if you have access to it, can be helpful in figuring out how to code this. Of course, doing all the exercises prior to this in the course are very, very helpful. And let's take a look. So we have, it looks like we have some icons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 different icons we can start with. We are going to put those into a list or an array called icons list. And then by generating a random number between 0 and 7, we can select one of those, have the computer select one of those at random. We're just calling that array. We're grabbing one of these, and we're going to place that into the icon variable. Then we're starting a loop, which is going to go 20 times. It's going to increment by 1 each time. We're going to change icon 0 at first, and each time through the list we're going to change icon 1, icon 2, icon 3. We're going to change the image to whatever the icon was selected at random. Then we're going to generate a random number between 20 and 200. We're going to assign that to the variable size. And then for the exact same icon, we're going to change the width and the height to whatever that size is. So that's probably in pixels, between 20 and 200. Then we're going to get a random number for our x coordinate for the icon and a random number for the y coordinate for icon. We can see that each one already has a position. And if we put our mouse over this one, you can see that its x is at 42, its y is at 120. And if you move your mouse around the screen, you can see that all the way to the top left, that's going to be 0, 0. As you move to the right, your x coordinate is going to increase up to about 320. And as you move down, it's going to increase to about 450. So I could have checked that in the earlier video, but I didn't. So that's kind of useful, where you can move your mouse around as long as it's not in run. And then let's see what we've got. We've got a set colors. And what does set colors do? Well, that's a function, and it loops 20 times. It changes the colors at random. It creates a color. It randomly chooses the value for the red, the green, and the blue. Those are numbers between 0 and 255. That goes into the color variable. And then each icon, with our loop of 20 times through, the icon color is set to a random color. Each time it's set to a random color. And then we have an onEvent block right here that should be changing our colors when we click it because it calls the setColor function. What's this one here? Home screen background color. We also have a line that changes the background's color at random. Okay, so let's run it and see how we're doing so far. So it looks like everything works. If we reset it and run it, everything works. Does the colors button work? I think the colors button works, but I think that setting the background color needs to be part of the function. So let's just drag that down a tiny bit to between line 21 and 22, so it becomes our new 22. And wait a second, what happened there? Control Z. It should still say home screen background color. It looks like this is a little bug in the code.org that you can't have the toolbox closed, at least I can't, and drag this down like this. So there we go. So that's now working. I don't know if that bug is just on my device or if it's on all devices. All right, let's reset that and run it. Making sure it's changing the background color. Yep, reset and run. Yep, and then colors. And now the colors button is also changing the background color. It is not changing the positions. So I think what we were probably doing at the end of the previous video was we were creating the functions. We were probably taking all this code and just making it into functions so that we don't have to build a new function for location and shapes, because we created our onEvent to change the colors. All right. So I think the next thing we need to do is locations. So we're going to make a function for locations. So we're going to go to the function blocks. We're going to make a function for locations, and we may have to move these around later. How did we call the previous ones? Set colors, so we'll call this one set locations with an S. And where are we setting the locations? Just these two lines here, 16 and 17. So I'm going to try to I'm going to click and hold on the desktop just here. I'm going to move my mouse up. It's going to make a little rectangle. It's going to highlight those two. It's going to give me the little hand. I'm going to try to grab the little hand and drag down to line 31, let it go. And since I tore that out of this loop, which begins, I need to throw that function back in there. And it needs to go just here, between 15 and 16, line 16, and I need to call it set locations. Set locations. And then I need to create the button for locations. So UI controls and onEvent. I'm going to throw this onEvent at the bottom temporarily. And so on the event that button is clicked, that button is called locations button. Then we're going to call the locations function, the set locations function, set locations, and there we go. Now let's test it because we've done a lot of coding. Okay, first we want to run it, make sure the locations are working. Yep, it's moving the locations around at random. Now press the locations button. Whoop, something's wrong. Line 31, set parameters. Let's look at line 31. Line 31. Line 31, the set property ID parameter refers to an ID icon 20 which does not exist. I probably need to do a loop there, don't I? Yeah. So I need a loop there because I need it to change the location of every object. Why did it? Oh, I see. So here, so I need to drag this out of here, put it right there, And set locations needs to have its own loop. So I'm going to grab my loop, I'm going to put it between 29 and 30. Then I'm going to drag my set properties in there. And you might be thinking, well, he should have noticed that earlier. Yeah, perhaps. But that's the great thing about testing things right away. You can see if things are broken or not. And so here we're running it, locations, locations. It's not changing the locations of everything. Because I didn't change this to 20. It's only changing the locations of 4 things, and I moved that, and it's in the wrong place. So I'm holding down the CTRL key control, and then tapping the letter Z to put it back. I'm going to change the 4 to 20, and I'm going to reset it and run it, and make sure everything seems to be in a different location. I'm going to press the locations button, and it seems to be working really well. Okay. So we have created a function for that. That means we don't have to repeat this code once when the program runs and then repeat it in the onEvent. So that saves us coding, and we're able to change the coding in one spot rather than 2 spots. Okay, so we have one more function button. We need a shapes button. I'll do this slightly differently from last time. First, I'll create our onEvents for shapes. So here's our onEvent for shapes button. That's probably at the bottom of the list. Yep, shapes button. And I'll need to call a function. We're going to call the function setShapes. But what does this function do? Well, nothing yet. We have to create the function, and it has to be called setShapes. And it needs to have the setShapes code, which we already have up on line. Where is the setShapes? We have the width and the height and the set property. This is the random size. So where are we getting our shapes? Right here is where we're getting our shapes or our icons. So I wonder if that's the only thing we have in there. Well, no, because we would need it to do that, and we would need it to loop. So I'm going to drag this down. Line 10 is going to go into our function, and then we'll need our loop, and we'll need our set property. I'm not sure where we're going to do this randomize the location. So for now, I'm just going to bring the set property for the icon image down. So we're going to just make this part into the function. That needs to be in a loop, and the loop needs to go 20 times because there's 20 of them. And so I got to make sure to change that to 20. So I think this set shapes button will work now, but when we run it, it will not set the shapes unless we put that up here also. So that way when we run the program the very first time, it will set the shapes. So I'm going to put that, oops, I put it on top of the other function. I'm going to try again. Okay, between 14 and 15 is where I'm going to put it. Set shapes. And wonder if we need to do that before we do the size. Probably not. Let's run it and find out. See, that looks okay. Colors. We already have tested colors. We know that works. It's not changing the locations. Locations. It's changing the location. Shapes. And it's changing the shapes. It's not changing the locations. Now my question is, does one of those functions also do one of these events? Do they need to change the scattering? So we need to go back to the original program. So I'm going back to bubble 1, part 1. And I'm going to try to see, like right now there's this field here that's empty. I'm going to see if one of these buttons actually moves around. That one does not move things around. So locations move things around, right? But it doesn't change the sizes. I guess it's the sizes is what I'm asking about. So I can't really tell if the sizes are changing. Shapes. So I feel like the sizes are set at the very beginning. I really would like to make that into a function though, in case I want to make that into a function in case we want to add a button that said like sizes. And then for our beginning, we'll just have those functions up top. So how can I make that into a function? So is this really extra coding? Not really. So I'm going to drag that entire code block into a function. We're going to call it set sizes. And then we're going to pull down a function which is called set sizes. All right, now where do we generally put functions? I'm pretty sure that we generally put functions at the bottom of the code. So I'm going to drag all the functions to the bottom. I'm going to put them in this order. Then I'm going to put the on events in the middle. So let's see, I'm going to pull these functions all the way to the bottom. I'm going to try to keep them in order. I'm going to pull the on events up so that they are immediately after our first event, when we run it. Okay, let's see if this is... So again, what I'm doing is I'm pulling the on events up so they're all together, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to rearrange them so that everything's in the same order. Set sizes, set shapes, set locations, set colors. Should I do it alphabetically? I guess I could. ABC, oops, Control Z. Set colors, locations, ABCDHI, shapes, and sizes. So colors button, locations button, shapes button, colors, bring that function up, locations, sizes, shapes, so it's shapes then sizes. Okay, so I wonder if design view even works. If we go to design view, okay, we can see that these icons are just put on there. I wonder if I could copy and paste another one. Control C, Control V. Okay, let's try it again. If I select this, oh, what if I press duplicate? Yep, look at that, duplicate, I added one more. And am I on that one? It's called image 1, it would have to be called image 20. Yeah. So I don't really need that, so I'm going to delete it. But yeah, in design view you can see how to do that. All right, what else do we need to do? I think we need to still add in comments. To get 100% on a project like this, you have to have comments. So comments would be under what? Nope, they were right there. So we're going to need to add a comment above when the program runs. We're going to need one above the events, and we're going to need one above the functions at the bare minimum. And each function is probably going to need a comment. So I'm going to put a comment before each of the 4 functions. And then let's work from the top down. So sets, let's see, the first comment, line 10, sets the initial lock screen. Okay, Okay, so color button changes all the colors randomly. Well, I guess we can put one in for the location button and the shapes button. Changes all the locations randomly. Changes all the shapes randomly from the 8 options, because there's only the 8 options up there. This next part is functions, and this sets the colors for each object and the background. What's this next one? Sets changes, and we can look at our locations. Right now I have 0 to 200 and 0 to 300. So I'm going to run this and see. I mean, I think each of these icons is actually inside of a square. So I think 0, 0 works okay. Given that the bottom of the screen is 440, 450-ish, 450 it must be. I think having a maximum of 300 is okay because we don't really want it behind colors, locations, and shapes. I think a maximum of 200 is probably okay also, even though the screen is 320. It looks pretty much like they're going all over the screen, and they are going behind these buttons a little bit. They don't look as much as they're going to the top of the screen or right of the screen, but that's just because of how the icons are. I don't think you can put negative numbers in there anyway for locations, so I'm not going to even try that. Alright, so this one changes the locations of each icon or image. Let's see, set shapes changes the shape of all the icons to a randomly selected one. Now you could add more commenting. If you wanted to. Oh, we still need to do set sizes. Changes the sizes randomly between 20 and 200. I think 20 and 200 is pretty okay for changing the sizes. And I think we pretty much have the coding done. I'm going to take a quick look at the instructions, see if there's anything else. We've got our checklist there. You also may have a piece of paper that you've gotten from your class, from your teacher. Program uses loops for all 3 buttons to generate expected output. We did that by using functions, so that's yes. All 3 buttons works as expected. Move the icons, change the colors, change the icon to a random new icon. Yeah, that works. No errors present in the required code. That's true. Comments are used to correctly explain the purpose and functionality of both the functions and the event handlers. So our event handlers are they're pretty simple because all they have is the function call in there. What else do we have? All required inputs have created on events, which they do. And variables and lists are created and appropriately used for all pieces of information in the app. We don't really have many variables. I mean, I guess we've got a few. We've got the icons list, which is already created. We've got the variables in the for loops, which of course are already created when we pull those for loops out, which is very convenient. We do have the icon in the icon list creating the random number here. The random number goes into icon, so that is a variable. We have the size here, but we don't really have many variables that we've added. I really do think that's it. So if you just want to see the code all done. I'll do a quick review. If you are all done with this, then great. Good job, and I hope everything's working out for you. If you have suggestions, go ahead and put them in the comments. If you have questions, and put them in the comments. Maybe someone else can answer them. Let's see. So what this does, this is an app. If we reset the app and we run it, it randomly sets the colors, sets the location, sets the shape, and sets the sizes for all these little icons here. And there's 20 of them. It has 4 functions. It does that right away as soon as you run it. So how are these functions set up? Well, that's down here. Our set color function, we are just going to change first the home screen, that's the background color to a random number. And you'll see that to do the colors, we're using an RGB triple. Actually, we're having 4 values. The 4th value is the transparency. And for the background, we're just choosing a random number between 100 and 255 for the red, the green, and the blue. And then we're just setting the background transparency to 0.5. So that's what that does. Then we have a little loop that loops 20 times. It first creates a variable called color, and it generates a RGB plus transparency color from 0 to 255. And then it sets each icon one at a time to that color. So that's our set colors function. Our next function, which is called, is our set locations. So we have the variable, again, we have a loop 20 times. We set the property of the x and the y. For a random number, our x from 0 to 200, our y from 0 to 300. Then we do our setting the shapes. So from the icons list, we randomly generate a number between 0 and 7. We grab from the icon list that value and we put it into the icon variable, and then we change every single one of the icons to that shape. So right now they're all set to hearts. We also do randomly changing the sizes between 20 and 200 for each icon. So we have, again, a loop that goes through 20 times, and there's our random size assignment, and we change both the width and the height. When I'm looking at this, I am seeing the fact that we do have loop in each one of these functions. So we've got 4 loops here, 4 functions and 4 loops. It might look like maybe, would it be possible for us to do the code differently? Maybe. But this code works, and this is only meant to be one example. There are probably many different ways to code this. So that is our app. I hope you appreciated the chance to see someone build an app from scratch in real time without any cuts or edits and talking through it with you. That was the whole goal. And good luck. I hope you learned something and have good success both on this assignment and in this course.